This is Sherm Radio in partnership with Timber Media, Podcasters for India Inc.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Unabashed, candid conversations on all things talent. In this podcast, we have open, honest and unapologetic conversations about the emergent realities of work, worker and the workplace. I have with me, I'm not going to call him usual suspect anymore, Abhijit Bhaduri, coach, talent management advisor and an author. Hi, Abhijit.
I think I should celebrate because I've been promoted. That I'm not the usual suspect is that, unsuspecting person.
From suspect, you've moved to a convict, is it?
Completely. I am now going to, whatever I say today will come from full conviction.
Okay, all right.
So, therefore,
wonderful.
I was intrigued by something that I read recently, that how businesses are pivoting. Mm-hmm. And I was reading about people going for virtual marathons. And this is something that, let's say, if there is a very well-known marathon which is being organized, which has historically gathers thousands of people who are coming together, and then how do you sort of do that when people cannot run in proximity? It's a phenomenal way in which they have pivoted, and they are, of course, not making as much money as they did before. But, at the same time, they are really doing something which is pretty unique. Yeah. So even movie halls, so I think, when did you last go to a hall to watch a movie?
My God, this was, I think, in March before the lockdown started.
Just before the lockdown.
Yeah,
so now, that's another thing which is a business which is going into a pivot. I mean, you have had a scenario where, people were worrying about, the movie halls were worrying about getting enough people into the cinema halls. But now they have a double whammy because, many of the exhibitors are not releasing the movies. I mean, the James Bond movie, No Time to Die, is now getting postponed to 2021. Right. So in case you were waiting to watch it.
And some are releasing on the OTT platforms.
Yes. I mean, Amitabh Bachchan movies and many others. I mean, they have released on OTTs only. So,
but while you spoke about virtual marathons, I actually got reminded of another news item that I had read, and this was about sort of zobbing balls that were created for yoga practitioners. All these sanitized little bubbles inside which people could practice yoga. So I do think that there are the different ways people are thinking about pivoting, so to say. And of course, new models are getting discovered. But when you talk about virtual marathons, what do you think? I mean, I'm sure after, this whole situation subsided, people will go back to how things used to be. Or do you see this phenomena, sticking around for some time?
I think it is going to be a hybrid model. So I don't think it's ever going to be a either or. It's going to be a bit like ebooks.
Something that you've been saying in each of our episodes.
I know. So it's going to be like that. I mean, some people will not stop buying paperbacks, but I think there is going to be an enormous demand for ebooks. I find that I've started reading much more. I've just downloaded a phenomenal book which I'm so enjoying reading. It is Colin Mayer's book called Prosperity, which really talks about how the value is now getting created from intangible sources, which is just such a powerful idea that I love. So I'm reading that. So ebooks, yes. And there is another, person who used to run a adventure program, which was for kids called In Me. What they used to do is take these children from schools, final years of school, take them for these camps to different parts of the country. And in this whole process of living away from, the parents cooking their own meals, pitching their own tent, many of them, urban kids have never had this kind of an experience. And so these guys actually pivoted this entire business because, many children are today not allowed to go out by themselves for obvious, health and safety reasons. So they've actually pivoted and created what they call bubble tourism, you can be in your own sanitized bubble with your own family.
Yeah, similar to that yoga program that I'm talking about.
Yeah, so that's so I think the opportunity to pivot, is there for every business. So what in let me ask you this question. So what in human resources would see the largest opportunity for a pivot, what would you pick?
Well, I think most of us pivoted into virtual online learning, didn't we? I mean, we didn't even have time to think about it. All of our in-person engagements overnight shifted to the virtual space. So I think for us, the first pivot happened there. Of course, our conference, which used to be an in-person huge event, pivoted into being a virtual conference. It's of course happening in December once again. So I think
what dates in December is it? I should block my calendar.
9th, 10th and 11th of December. 9th, 10th and 11th of December.
11th December. Terrific.
That's
I'm going to block my calendar for that. But conference is another thing which is getting reinvented. I also think that, what should people do? Because a lot of businesses are not hiring right now, or they are changing their workforce mix, somewhat outsourced, frozen hiring, etc. Many of these changes are happening. That's true. What do you think, the talent acquisition team should be doing when there is no hiring? Because
isn't that the time to upskill or reskill?
Yeah, upskill, but in what? What kind of upskill would you do? I mean, I can, one of the things, if I was in talent acquisition, one of the first things I would do is actually evaluate this whole process and sort of say that what if we did, something which is, just entirely in the virtual space and something which is quasi-virtual, some of the roles which are there, which ones really need to be done entirely virtually and it won't get impacted in terms of choice? Or, something else. What would you look at, So I'm really thinking I would use the time to audit and upskill based on that. No,
absolutely. And when you talk about hiring freeze, which means that there were some open requisitions, right? Mm-hmm. So if we could actually look at, the skills that are required for those roles and look at, those roles and the responsibilities, that a person needs to maybe look at skilling people in those areas, right? So let's say if, there is an engineer who works on a particular programming language and the requisition that was open is for another programming language, we can have this person, engineer A, get reskilled in another programming language, right? So that's something that can be enabled, from within. So my sense is looking at what's available right now in terms of talent and the kind of, positions that were open and the kind of skills that they required. Maybe look at a reskilling model that, works in that manner. What do you think?
And I would just add to that and say, Neha, that if the talent acquisition team were to also look at this opportunity to create, career paths, get to know the internal talent pool much better. And one of the examples of that that comes to my mind is in one of the companies where I was working for, acquired a company where, we had taken on a couple of people who were oil and natural gas experts, and this particular company had been acquired. Now, when I sort of went and spoke to those people, one of the interesting things that I learned was, these people had enormous amount of project management experience, and yet we were, my employer was paying another consulting company to come in and project manage the work that these people were going to do. And these people were frustrated because they said, did somebody even ask me that, you may have had 20 years of experience in project management. Is that a role you would like to apply for? And I always thought that, wow, I mean, what a miss. This would have been an opportunity to create the new kind of a, career opportunity for this guy. But also, I think it would give the acquired company the opportunity to say that, okay, you guys are precious. You are not just somebody who
Absolutely.
has to and sort of give up your previous life.
Yeah.
I think that's an enormous opportunity when you acquire another company to really understand. So I would create, a separate mandate for the talent acquisition team to be able to know when there is a merger and acquisition, to be able to actually invest their time and energy to learn about, how do you keep career paths more creatively designed?
No, I absolutely agree. And I think in that process, when you are investing in your people, you're also getting their loyalty in return, right? So when I feel that I'm being invested in, I'm being developed, my sense of belongingness, to the organization also increases, right? So I think it's a win-win situation for both the employee and the organization. And perhaps now is the time for talent acquisition folks to also start thinking in, the learning and development direction.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that, these cannot really exist in a vacuum because, the gap that you have when you hire someone is very often we assume that we will train that person. Some of the things are not trainable at least in the short run. So when you are looking at that, so I would really let the talent acquisition team rethink their sourcing strategy. So really sort of start to say that how do we change the profile of the organization in terms of its marketing efforts of brand engagement? How do you convey the actual brand of the organization, not just for what it is, but what are its aspirations for the future? Can that entire process of hiring become a pull strategy rather than a push strategy that I connect out with people, etc. Instead of that, how do we ensure that the ratio of jobs which are filled through pull, people are applying?
Right.
That's a new metric that they can create, and the opportunity to create similar metrics. Yeah. What is one such metric that you think they should focus on?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think quality of hire is something that we have always been, reporting on and measuring, right, as a crucial metric for talent acquisition. But I also see this new phenomena of really catching your workforce young and then watching them grow. And a lot of these, ed tech companies, have now come up with this model where they get these bunch of people and they train them on the skills that a particular company requires, and the company has that contract with the with the tech firm that they will after say a period of 3 months when the training is over, they will absorb them in the company. So in that sense, even before the job is ready, your talent is getting ready, and someone is doing that job for you. So of course there's this whole bit of outsourcing that can be done there, where we can also prepare our future workforce well in advance.
Plus, I think that when the talent acquisition team gets active and involved in the communities, so for example, each of these professions where you hire from, many of these experts, they actually have their expert community where they discuss problems, they find creative solutions. They are actually, you can also figure out who are the people who are very, very good in training people, because they'll say, I've created a short video, look at this. I mean, so looking at people, not just from the roles that you put in the job description. In either case, I'm not a great believer in job descriptions, because that worked well when there was a static world, because the job pretty much remained static for 2 or 3 years. And in many places, at least in a couple of years back also, this used to be one of the favorite things that you used to give to summer trainees. Update the job descriptions, and some poor guy who has no idea about your business is actually writing all these job descriptions by interviewing business managers. It's just such a lousy idea to do that.
But to my mind, it's still an indicative document, right? Initially, you don't need that.
Yes, but if your businesses are going to change, when you create a job description document, I think what really happens is that you are also setting expectations that this is really pretty much the ambit. You are really telling the person that this job is expected to be a square or a rectangle. The possibility of creating a rhombus out of that job gets restricted, at least in the mind of the people you have hired. Because then, so this is the whole process. When you do a more open-ended version of the job description, you're actually in a position to create many more opportunities for people. So I would really think that creating that flexibility and adaptability, one of the first things would be to, remove this baby pool kind of a concept. Let the person swim in the deep. Because
so which means, the whole idea of realistic job reviews, that still holds good, but maybe JDs are going to go away. Is that what you're saying?
I definitely think JDs are going to go away, because as businesses change quite rapidly, I mean, those businesses which don't change, those businesses will go away. So, if your JDs are so static, chances are that your business is going to disappear.
Right. So, but I don't think you look at a JD, once you've gotten hired, right?
So then what's the point of having that JD? What is the point?
I think, initially, and I'm going back to my experiences, okay, whenever I got a call, from a recruiter from some company, I would first ask for that job description, because I want to see what does the fine print say, what thinking has gone into putting that, description together. Of course, we all know that the role is going to be more fluid than what appears on that piece of paper. But I think it's a good indication to say, okay, this is what this role entails. And during during hiring, of course, sometimes, your hiring manager would tell you how the role, would evolve over time and what it really means. But to my mind, at the time of the recruitment process, at the time of hiring, that may still serve its purpose. No?
Oh
what do you
gosh,
think?
no, I would not ever sort of do that because, think about it. Yeah, it makes sense to know that, let's say, if you're hiring somebody for human resources, in some companies, administration is part of the HR role. In some places, it's not. So it may be worth defining those. In some places, security is part of the admin function, or it's a separate function and reports to HR. I mean, there are multiple combinations. Yes, those kind of broad brush things, because people may have a preference for one versus the other. But having said that, or it may also be that you might say it sort of is responsible for this particular geography at the moment. 1 year later, it's going to be involved in, XYZ geographies as well. So those kind of things are there. Except for the fact that in today's day and age, because the business changes so dramatically, I think the opportunity for somebody to stay static and be confined to that really disappears. Two, I think it also creates a sense of complacency. I know what the job requires and I know what I need to do. And therefore, those are the people who get hired. You're really building in the whole process of non-adaptability, if there is a word like that.
Yeah, the joke goes around, no, it's not written in my JD. I'm not paid for this.
Exactly. That is a typical example of where a JD gets misused. It's not written in my JD, so I'm not going to do it. So you get people who are like that. And then people who kind of, that's precisely where I think JDs create silos in organizations. So I would really think that I would question that practice from talent acquisition. So now, Neha, today is my turn to ask you, what are some of the three emergent realities? What are the three bright ideas you've got from this conversation?
Well, I've got quite a few, but I also want to ask our listeners if they are doing something different when it comes to hiring, how they have pivoted, if at all right now they're experiencing hiring freeze, then what are some, alternatives that they are looking at? Are they looking at skilling, reskilling at all? Do tell us about that. And of course, JDs, what's your view? Do we have any recruiters as listeners who can tell us about how the new age hiring is really looking like? And perhaps that will be our emergent reality then. Abhijit, what say?
I just so love that phrase, emergent reality. This is something I've learned from you definitively. I have never used this word until I started talking to you. So
well, I see, I teach you something as well, and I'm feeling so proud about that.
It's all the time. The one reason I do this podcast is because then it helps me to learn, things that I would have never learned otherwise. But
all right, so I'm doing some reverse mentoring here, is it?
No, you're mentoring a Gen Z as a millennial. That's only expected.
Right. That's what you like to believe. Perfect. On that note, let's close today's episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you'd like to reach us, do drop us a query on shermindia@sherm.org. You can also follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Of course, Abhijit is available on all of these social platforms as well. Abhijit, once again, your email address, please.
Yeah, my email address is Abhijit Bhaduri @live.com, ABHIJIT BHADURI @live.com. If you want to reach me on Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, it's the same thing. Just look for Abhijit Bhaduri, ABHIJIT BHADURI. And I am looking forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. So thank you so much once again. We'll catch you for another candid conversation very soon. Until next time, stay unabashed.
Stay unabashed.
All right. Bye.
This is Sherm Radio in partnership with Timber Media, podcasters for India Inc.